11:40 p.m. The hour hung in the narrow space between day's end and the next beginning, like a fishbone lodged in the throat, impossible to swallow or spit out. The entire city had gone quiet. Even the couple across the building who fought every night had finally fallen silent, probably too exhausted to keep going, retreating into their separate corners of silence. This was the third day of Elena's business trip. I was home alone with our 3.5-year-old son, living a life that felt almost airless. Mornings, drop him at preschool. Afternoons, pick him up. Cook dinner. Bathe him. Read picture books. Put him to bed. After he fell asleep, I'd sit on the living room couch with the TV on mute, some variety show grinning soundlessly at the screen. I wasn't watching it. I just needed the light. On the coffee table sat a bowl of noodles that had long since congealed into a sticky mass. Sauce hardened into a dark red film across the surface. I'd made them at 5 that afternoon, thinking she'd be home in time to eat something warm. She'd texted then, flight landed, heading back in a cab. I pulled tomatoes and eggs from the fridge, chopped scallions, simmered the sauce low and slow, boiled the noodles, rinsed them in cold water, tossed them with sesame oil to keep them from sticking, plated them, covered the bowl, set it on the table waiting for her key in the lock. An hour passed. The noodles began to swell. 2 hours. The broth had been absorbed. 3 hours. I'd microwaved it for 40 seconds. Stirred. Put it back on the table. Now, 4 hours in, it had become something unidentifiable. I heard the elevator ding. Footsteps traveled down the hallway. Heels on tile. Unsteady. A little dragged. Keys slid into the lock. Turned twice. The deadbolt clicked open. The door swung in, and she stood in the entryway with her suitcase. A warm yellow pool of light from the floor lamp pooling at her feet. Elena wore a navy blazer over a white silk blouse, tucked into a pencil skirt. Her standard travel uniform. Polished. Professional. Unquestionable. But her face was pale, white as her shirt. Her hair was slightly disheveled, strands loose at the temples, missing the usual meticulous precision. As she bent to change shoes, I saw her fingers trembling. She fumbled twice with the buckle before it came loose, like her hands weren't obeying her. Exhausted, she said. The word came through clenched teeth, her voice hoarse, like something was stuck in her throat. Did you eat? I asked. Not hungry. She kicked off her heels, bare feet on the floor, dragging her suitcase straight toward the bedroom. Passing me, she stirred a faint breeze carrying an unfamiliar perfume and a trace of alcohol. She didn't look at me twice. She hadn't always come home like this before. She'd throw her arms around me, squeeze our son's cheeks, pull out a local snack from her suitcase, then collapse on the couch and chatter about all the absurd things that happened on her trip. But over the last 6 months, her homecoming had become a ritual. In, change shoes, say she's tired, into the bedroom, close the door, like a fixed sequence, like I'd become an extra step she'd learned to skip. The bedroom door clicked shut. 3 seconds later, the muffled thud of her collapsing onto the bed. Then silence, the kind that crawls under your skin. No shifting, no turning, like she hit the pillow and completely powered down. I walked to the bedroom door. It was ajar, darkness leaking through the gap thick as ink. I pushed it open just a crack. Hallway lights sliced diagonally across the bed we picked out together when we got married. Elena lay on her side. No bedside lamp. No blanket. Her face buried in the pillow. The curve of her neck and the back of her head exposed. Sound asleep. Breathing even. Chest rising and falling gently. I stood at the doorway for a few seconds, ready to pull the door closed. That's when the hallway light slid across her neck, and I saw things I shouldn't have seen. From below her ear down to her collarbone, dense red marks. Some dark purple and faded, days old, others fresh pink with reddened edges. The shapes were too familiar. 5 years ago, when we were in the heat of our honeymoon phase, her neck had worn identical marks. From me, back then, in that cramped 30-square-meter apartment near campus. Summers with no air conditioning. 2 bodies pressed together in front of a fan. I'd left those marks. And she'd worn a turtleneck to work the next day, laughing and punching my chest calling me a dog. Now those marks were back. Dense. Deep. A net stretching from her ear to her collarbone, trapping her completely. And the person who trapped her wasn't me. I closed the door. Gently. No squeak from the hinges. Back in the living room, I sat on the couch. The TV still played silently. Guests laughing. one getting splashed with water, face contorted with exaggerated glee. I picked up the remote and pressed power. The screen went black, plunging the room into dimness. Only the under-cabinet kitchen lights still glowing faint blue-white. My phone still glowed. The WeChat conversation with her still open. Her last message. 3:17 that afternoon, coming home tonight. Don't wait for me to eat. I'd replied, okay. In the 3 hours since, I'd called 6 times. No answer. Messages dropped into the void without echo. Now she was home. Asleep. Spared even an explanation. I went to the kitchen and tipped the noodles into the trash. The sticky mass hit the bag with a dull thud. The water in the pot was still warm. I turned off the burner, scrubbed the pot clean, dried it with a towel, put it back on the stove. Then I stood at the cupboard, staring at the row of condiment bottles. Soy sauce, vinegar, oyster sauce, cooking wine, each labeled in her handwriting with a marker. From when she'd first moved in. Round script, each character ending with a little hook. Next to them, a cartoon sticker she bought during last year's move, a cat in an apron holding a spatula. Eyes curved into crescent moons. I reached out and touched the sticker. The cool plastic film. The faint raised texture against my fingertip. The living room clock ticked. Each second beat like a light hammer against my temple. I turned, walked into the bedroom, stood by the bed. On the nightstand sat her wedding band. A simple silver band. The date of our wedding engraved inside. She took it off before sleeping. A habit since day one. She said rings were uncomfortable to sleep in. Afraid of scratching her face. I'd never thought much of it. When she put hers on the nightstand, I put mine on the other side. 2 silver circles lying side by side, like silent periods at the end of a sentence. I picked up her ring, held it in my palm. The cold metal bit into my skin. She shifted in her sleep, mumbled something unintelligible. I froze, heart pounding against my ribs, throat tight, but she didn't wake, just buried her face deeper into the covers. One ear exposed. That ear also bore a faint pink mark, slightly swollen, like someone had held it between their teeth and worried it. I stood there for 3 minutes, breathing shallow, barely audible, fingers white-knuckled around the ring. In those 3 minutes, I walked through 5 years of marriage from start to finish. From our first date to her walking down the hotel aisle in white. From our son's birth when she gripped my hand so hard her nails left marks, to the increasing frequency of her overtime and business trips over the past 6 months. 3 minutes is short, shorter than it takes to cool a cup of hot water. But in those 3 minutes, the images flashing through my mind had drained every ounce of strength I had. I walked back to the living room, pulled my old, faded black backpack from the top shelf of the shoe cabinet. I'd had it since college. Canvas, edges worn white, zipper pull replaced with wire I'd bent myself. Inside, a dead power bank, a packet of tissues, half a tin of mints. I put the ring in the side zipper pocket. The metallic teeth zipped shut with a crisp sound in the empty room. Then I opened the kid's door. Our son, 3.5, lay in his little bed, blankets kicked down to his feet, pajama legs bunched at his knees, limbs splayed in a big starfish shape. A trickle of drool glistened at the corner of his mouth in the warm orange nightlight. 3 drawings taped to the headboard, a sun, a dog, 3 people holding hands. Red for daddy, yellow for mommy, blue for himself, all grinning huge, teeth drawn like little fences. I lifted him gently. His body was soft and warm, carrying that particular baby smell. I wrapped him in a blanket. He grunted, but didn't wake. His little hand instinctively grabbed my pajama collar, thumb finding his mouth, sucking a couple times. I changed my shoes, slung the backpack over one shoulder, and carried him to the door. The living room light was still on. The kitchen under-cabinet lights were still on. The whole apartment was lit up. The bedroom door was ajar, and from inside came her soft, even snores, the breathing of someone who felt completely safe. I looked at that door one last time. The darkness leaking through the gap was still so thick, impossible to disperse. I suddenly realized, when she'd come in today, she hadn't called out "I'm home" like she used to. She'd skipped that step, like she no longer remembered there was someone waiting for her. I turned the deadbolt, pushed the door open, and stepped out. The door closed behind me with a soft click, so quiet you could miss it if you weren't listening. The hallway motion sensor light flicked on, harsh white fluorescence hitting my face. The boy stirred in my arms, cheek against my neck. His warm, even breath puffing against my skin. The elevator arrived. I stepped in and pressed the button for B1. The floors ticked down one by one. I watched the red numbers fall. And inside me was emptiness. Not the kind that comes from overwhelming grief, nor from rage. A different kind. Like someone had scooped out my insides, leaving only a shell of skin without even the strength to feel pain. The doors opened. Underground garage. Silent except for the distant drip of water from a pipe somewhere. 1 drop. 2 drops. Spaced far apart. Like a pendulum. I carried the boy toward our old silver SUV. A layer of dust had settled on it. It hadn't been driven in 2 weeks, because she said it was too shabby to be seen in. Last time I'd picked her up from a company dinner, she'd taken a cab rather than ride in this car. I'd waited 40 minutes outside the restaurant, watched her walk out laughing with her colleagues. Zach walked ahead of them all, held the door for her, and she slid into the back seat. The taillights disappeared around the corner. I'd followed in that dusty SUV, 3 cars back, watching her and Zach sit side by side in the back. Window half down, night wind lifting her hair, Zach leaning toward her, and she'd laughed. That smile. I knew it. It was the same smile she'd given me when we first met. I buckled the boy into his car seat. He woke a little, rubbing his eyes. Voice soft and groggy. Daddy, where are we going? I got in. Turned the key. The engine roared. Too loud in the empty garage, setting off a car alarm 2 spaces over. Daddy's taking you to see the stars, I said. He settled back, closed his eyes, and went back to sleep. A child's trust is absolute. He doesn't need to know why we're leaving in the middle of the night, why mommy isn't with us. If I said to see the stars, that was enough. I shifted into gear, pressed the gas. The SUV rolled forward toward the exit. Headlights swept across the concrete walls, past a row of advertisement boards. One of them, a beauty salon ad, showed a woman smiling, lips painted bright red. I slammed the brakes. The car jolted to a stop. I stared at that face for 2 seconds. It looked nothing like Elena, but that smile. It reminded me of the way she curled the corner of her mouth when she came in tonight. That perfunctory, muscle-twitch smile. I released the brake and drove on. The exit gate lifted. The car pulled into the night. Streetlights slid past one by one, orange orbs stretching into bands of light across the windshield. Neon signs in red and blue and green reflected off the side windows like silent fireworks. The midnight streets were nearly empty. A taxi passed in the opposite lane. Headlights a brief flare, gone in the side mirror. I turned on the navigation. Destination set to an abandoned quarry on the outskirts. I'd found it years ago on a solo hike. A 40-minute trek along a trail nearly swallowed by weeds. And then suddenly the view opened up. A massive pit, maybe 200 or 300 meters across, 50 meters deep. Walls of exposed rock layered like scars from a giant axe. Water at the bottom, rising in the rainy season to form a dark green lake, surrounded by jagged rocks and wild grass. Wind swept up from the valley carrying the smell of soil and rusted metal. My first time there. I'd sat for an entire afternoon, just staring at the water below. I'd brought Elena once. She peered over the edge, stepped back, said, "This place is desolate. How can you like it?" She'd rushed me to leave, said having no phone signal made her uneasy. I'd come back many times after that, on bad days, good days, and most often on days that were neither, just wanting a place where no one knew me. The navigation voice echoed mechanically, "Turn right in 300 meters. I reached over and turned it off. I didn't need it. I knew that road with my eyes closed. About 40 minutes later, I turned onto a dirt road without streetlights, bumping for maybe 10 minutes, then pulled to a stop in an open clearing. I killed the engine, dimmed the interior lights, sat in the darkness, hearing only the wind and my own rough breathing. The breeze seeped through the door cracks, carrying the smell of wild grass and earth. Through the windshield, the vast pit loomed black under moonlight, a crack in the earth's surface, edges jagged and uneven. The water at the bottom reflected a sliver of silver, like broken glass. The boy slept soundly in the back. His breathing was steady, occasionally a little smack of his lips, like he was dreaming of something tasty. I opened the glove box and took out the ring. Moonlight filtered through the windshield, catching the silver band. Cold gleam. The engraving inside, asterisk 2021, 05, 20 star, was perfectly legible. I remembered every detail of that day. May 20th. The date sounding like "I love you" in Chinese. We'd stood in a long line at the Civil Affairs Bureau. She had a milk tea in one hand, the other gripping my arm, saying, "So many people today." I'd said, "That's good. Means everyone wants to make a good life." She'd smiled, said, "We're going to make a good life too." The photo from that certificate still sat in the frame on her vanity. Her in a white dress, me in a dark blue shirt, heads pressed together, both smiling so hard our eyes disappeared. I held the ring up to the moon. The moon was wrapped in a thin halo, like a frosted glass disc. Moonlight passed through the empty center of the ring, projecting a perfect circle of light on my palm. Crisp edge, cold light. I turned my wrist. The spot rolled across my palm like a firefly trapped in the maze of my lifelines. I put the ring back in the zipper pocket, zipped it shut. Then I leaned back in the seat and closed my eyes. All I could see were those marks. Dense, deep, spreading from her ear to her collarbone. A net enclosing her. And the person who'd cast that net wasn't me. The ring didn't encircle me either anymore. It encircled only a hollow pocket of air. I pulled out my phone and scrolled up through our chat history. 2 days ago, the day she'd left. A voice message from her. Voice light with a hint of laughter. "Honey, I'm heading out. Back in 2 days. Don't miss me too much." Followed by a tongue-out emoji. I'd replied with a sticker of a kitten waving. Then she'd posted on Moments. A photo from the airport. Coffee and a book. Caption, "Business trip. Temporarily leading the mundane world." A mutual friend commented, "Lucky you. Traveling alone with your male boss." She replied with an eye roll emoji and a "don't talk nonsense." That male boss was Zach. Early 40s. Divorced. Promoted to VP last year. Now overseeing her department. When they traveled together before, company policy was separate rooms. The itinerary clearly stated it. But starting this year, she and Zach kept being scheduled for the same departure and return dates, often on the same flight. I'd never specifically looked into it. She'd let it slip herself now and then, casually. Zach said we should catch the same flight to go over materials. We happened to be booked on the same floor. Fancy running into him at the elevator. I never questioned her. Not because I trusted her, but because I was afraid I couldn't handle whatever answers I might get. Now those fragments started burrowing into my brain, one by one, fitting into place like puzzle pieces. The details I deliberately ignored were connecting into a line, and at the end of that line was a fact I didn't want to admit. The night before she left, she'd stood on the balcony for half an hour on the phone. Voice low. I passed by and she looked back at me, her expression stiff for a split second. Packing her suitcase, she'd added extra sets of underwear, tucked in a hidden compartment, covered by a coat. Before she left, she kissed me. Her lips were cold, like a dragonfly skipping across water. I gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. The air in the car felt like congealed glue. Each breath took effort to suck oxygen out of the viscosity. From the back seat, a sleepy murmur, "Mommy." I turned my face away, staring at the dark pit outside. Moonlight skittered across the water at the bottom. Wind rose from the pit, carrying the smell of damp, rotting vegetation. The pit was like a giant eye, staring blankly up at the sky. I fumbled a cigarette from my pocket. I don't smoke much, but there's always a pack in the trunk, just in case. The cherry flared orange in the dark, catching on the windshield. Smoke drifted out the cracked window, dissipated in the night breeze into a thin white thread. I took 3 drags, held the cigarette between my fingers, watched it burn slowly to ash. The phone screen lit up. A message from Elena. I stared at the notification for about 10 seconds. The screen's glow illuminated the shadows under my eyes. The car's display light caught the raised veins on my hand, mapping them like rivers. I tapped open. "Where did you go? You're not in the bathroom. And the kid's not here." "Neither." Followed by a question mark. Then, "You're not at that stupid quarry again. Are you? Are you crazy?" Then a voice call request. The phone vibrated insistently. Green button pulsing. I hit decline. Then I typed a few words. Deleted them. Typed again. Deleted again. My finger hovered over the screen. A bird with nowhere to land. Finally, I turned the phone face down on my knee. I took one last drag. Stubbed the butt against the window frame. The plastic left a small scorch mark. I stared at that black dot, feeling like something inside me had burned a matching hole, still smoking at the edges. The boy in the back woke with a small cry. "Daddy. Gotta pee." I sighed. Opened the door. Night air hit me, carrying mountain chill. Made me shiver. I unbuckled him from the seat, carried him to a flat patch of ground. He rubbed his eyes. Bare feet on the cold earth, hunched shoulders against the cold. When he finished, I picked him up and wrapped him tight in the blanket. He clung to my shoulder, sleepy eyes looking up. Daddy, why are we here? To see the stars, I said. He looked up. And yes, there really were stars here. The kind you can't see in the city, packed dense across the dome of the sky like a whole sack of diamonds scattered over black velvet. The Milky Way spanned from southeast to northwest, a gray-white ribbon so clear it looked dusted with silver powder. He stared for a moment, then grinned. So pretty. Right. The wind grew colder. He curled into me, face buried in my neck. I held him there in the open for a long time. The stars didn't move, didn't speak, didn't ask questions. They just shone, each of them tens of thousands of light years away. The light reaching my eyes had started its journey tens of thousands of years ago. By the time it reached me, those stars themselves might already be dead. I realized that thought actually made me feel better. Maybe all light is just the ghost of the past. Even love. What you think you're seeing is just what it looked like when it set off. The real thing might have died long ago. But the light hasn't finished traveling yet. Are you cold? I asked. He nodded. Let's get in the car. I buckled him back in. He curled into the seat, little hand patting around the empty seat beside him until it found the old backpack. His fingers worked the zipper half open. The silver ring's edge glinted. He reached for it. I gently blocked him. Don't touch that. What is it? Daddy's thing. He said oh and didn't ask again. Just tilted his head and fell back asleep. Kids' sleep comes and goes fast. He closed his eyes and was breathing evenly within 3 seconds. I closed the door and got back in the driver's seat. The phone was still face down on my knee. The screen hadn't lit up again. I looked at the night sky through the windshield. The moon had drifted west, the halo like frosted glass. The stars all stared coldly from far away. So far I couldn't even summon the desire to reach for them. I don't know when I decided to drive to the quarry. When I'd left, there'd been only one thought: leave that room. Leave the bedroom with her snoring. Leave those marks on her neck. But I didn't know where I was going after that. I only knew I couldn't stay in that living room. Couldn't keep staring at that bowl of ruined noodles. Couldn't keep listening to her soft snores. Every single thing in that room was telling me the same answer. An answer I didn't want to know. The phone lit up again. Not Elena this time. My mother-in-law. I stared at the screen, the word mom glowing, and picked up. Evan. Elena said you took the baby and disappeared. What happened? Did you fight? No. I said. My voice was flat as a tabletop. Even I was surprised at how even it was. Then where are you? She's frantic. You need to bring her back right now. Whatever you two disagreed about, you can work it out. Elena's stubborn, but you just need to be the bigger person. Mom. I cut her off. We're fine. We'll be back tomorrow. Tomorrow. You. I hung up. Thumb pressed the red button. Held it 2 seconds. The phone buzzed again. I declined. Then texts from Elena, one after another. Like bullets. Where are you? The baby. Are you insane? Evan. Answer me. I'm calling the police. That last one landed like a knife. I stared at it for a long time. The screen's light reflected into my pupils, burning those words into my retina. She said she was calling the police. She'd rather call the police than stop and think, what kind of husband takes a 3-year-old out of bed in the middle of the night and drives to the middle of nowhere? I replied, go ahead. I put the phone down, started the engine, turned around, and drove deeper into the mountain roads. Tires crunched over gravel, the car swaying on the uneven surface. The boy in the back slept deeply, breathing even. His little body curled into the car seat like a kitten. Moonlight angled through the side window onto his cheek, catching the fine baby hairs. I suddenly remembered his 3rd birthday. Elena had gotten him a small cake. Round, white frosting with rainbow sprinkles. 3 candles. He tried to blow them out twice and failed, each puff just bending the flame sideways and back. Elena had leaned in to help, hair brushing his face, and he'd laughed. Then father and son blew together. All 3 candles went out at once. He clapped and shouted, I'm 3. The room had been full of cream and her laughter. When she cut the cake, cream smeared on her ring finger, she wiped it with a napkin and licked the tip of her finger. She wasn't wearing her ring then. It was on the nightstand because she didn't want to get it greasy. And then it hit me. She almost never wore her ring at home anymore. At work? Yes. Meetings. Yes. In photos on social media. She'd always angle her wrist so the ring appeared. But the second she walked in the door, first thing, off it came, onto the nightstand, like shedding an ill-fitting suit of armor. I'd always thought it was just habit, comfort at home, the ease of being herself. But now, in the moonlight, assembling the pieces, I saw a shape that sent a chill down my spine. The way she took it off was too fast, almost eager. There was no comfortable routine in that motion. There was a barely suppressed urgency, like she was finally returning from a place where she had to pretend, to a place where she could show her true self. Like home had become no different from a hotel room. No need to fake it anymore. She never let me touch her phone. She always slept facing away. In the last 6 months, her business trips went from once a month to 3 times a month, always with Zach. Last time she got back, I'd been unpacking her suitcase the next morning and found a movie ticket in the inner pocket, lost in the stars, dated the first night of her trip. Next to it, a restaurant receipt, 2 people, over 600 yuan, steak and red wine. I'd asked if she had time to see a movie during a business trip. Colleagues went. The client canceled. We had nothing to do. Male or female. Team outing. I didn't ask more. When she said team outing, her eyes had flicked to the left. A split second. So brief I almost missed it. Those marks. Dense. Layered. Varying in age. Couldn't be self-inflicted. She couldn't reach that spot. Her nails weren't that long. She needed my help just to reach a pimple on her back. I pulled the car over beside an abandoned gas station. The place was decrepit. The sign rusted to illegibility. Only GAN on still faintly readable. The fuel nozzles lay on the ground. Hoses coiled in dust. The convenience store's windows were mostly smashed. Shelves toppled. Magazines yellowed and scattered on the floor. I killed the engine. Pulled the handbrake. Hesitated. Then I opened the small compartment beneath the passenger seat. Inside, my old wallet and a backup ID. I'd gotten this compartment because it felt secure. Now I realized how ridiculous security was. You can make yourself 1,000 hidden compartments and hide 1,000 IDs. But you can't hide one fact: the person you spent 5 years loving may never have truly been yours. The phone buzzed again. This time, the police station. The area code on the screen was local. I picked up. Mr. Evan Chen, your wife reported that you've taken the child. We need to confirm your and the child's safety. We're safe. Can you tell us your current location? I drove, parked on the side of the road. More specifically, not sure. A beat of silence on the other end. The dispatcher probably exchanging glances with someone nearby. Mr. Chen, this is a missing person report. Your wife is very worried. For the child's sake, we'd appreciate your cooperation. She's worried, I said. Another pause. Yes. Fine. Then tell her I'm not coming home tonight. Tomorrow. I'll go to the station myself. Mr. Chen, tell her to calm down. And tell her to think about what she did the past 2 days. Then I'll talk. I hung up. Before I did, I heard the dispatcher trying to say something more, but I didn't give him the chance. The night wind came through the window, shaking the cold light on the phone screen like a bulb about to burn out. From the back seat, the boy turned in his sleep, murmured, "Mommy, hold me." My shoulders collapsed. That collapse came from deep inside the bone, like the load-bearing wall had been pulled out. Every floor falling one after another. My temples throbbed. My eyes stung. But I didn't cry. I blinked, forced the sting back down. I couldn't cry now. I had to drive. I had to take my child somewhere safe. I restarted the car. No destination. Just forward. The Bluetooth auto-connected. And an old song started playing. One Elena used to love. Lyrics about you said you'd love me forever. But your promises are just bubbles. I turned it off. The car fell quiet. Just the growl of the engine and the crunch of tires on gravel. I drove a long time. Around 3 a.m., I pulled onto a clearing beside a mountain road. No signal. The messages. The calls. All gone. The world had shrunk to me. The boy. This car. And the heartbreakingly cold stars. I turned off all the lights. Even the dashboard glow. Sat in pure darkness. Hearing my own heartbeat. That steady. Stubborn. Still desperate thumping. The organ in my chest was still doing its job. Unaware of anything outside. Just following its rhythm. The boy was deeply asleep in the back. A small animal snuffle now and then. I pulled the backpack onto my lap. Unzipped it. Felt for the ring. Cold metal traveled from my fingertips to the center of my chest, spreading through my veins. I tried it on my pinky. Too small. Wouldn't pass the second knuckle. I took it off. Held it in my palm. Held it until my body heat warmed the metal. Then carefully returned it to the zipper pocket. From the seat, I pulled out my tablet. Used it as a flashlight. The white beam hit the car roof, illuminating a milk stain from last year. Elena had been feeding the boy. He'd fallen asleep mid-bottle, and it slipped, splattering the roof liner. She'd exclaimed, wiped at it with a wet wipe. Said won't come off. Forget it. There'd been that helpless new mom smile on her face when she said it. Thinking about it now, I realized that smile had once been real. I thought, forget it. I opened my contacts and scrolled to a name. Not Zach. Jackson. My college friend. Now a lawyer in a neighboring city. We didn't talk much. New Year's messages. Occasional likes on each other's social media. But he was the only person I knew who could take a call at this hour and give advice that made sense. I checked the time. 4 a.m. too late to call. But I called anyway. 4 rings. He picked up. Voice raspy. Thick with sleep. Evan. In the middle of the night. You'd better have a good reason. I want a divorce. 5 seconds of silence. Then the sound of him sitting up. Blankets rustling. Feet on the floor. Probably moving to the balcony to close the door. What the hell? I said. A divorce. You and Elena. Weren't you guys good? She just posted about you making her soup. That was last week. So, do you have proof? Or have you reached that point? I saw the marks on her neck. I said. The words came out even. No tremor. Like a doctor reading test results. Another few seconds of silence. Jackson let out a long, deep sigh. Shit. Where are you now? Outside. In the car. With my son. You took the kid. Yes. You're insane. That's going to look terrible for you. I know. That's why I called you first. Wait until this afternoon. I'll arrange things. Take the kid back. Or at least get a hotel. Don't say you ran away with the kid. That'll kill your custody case. You understand what I'm saying? Yes. Then find somewhere safe to stay. I'll contact you after daybreak. You can talk to Elena. But don't bring up the child in front of her. Talk if you can. If you can't, call me. Got it. Got it. I hung up. Call duration, 028. The sky was beginning to pale. Not true dawn, but the gray-blue glimmer that appears after the deepest dark. The mountain ridge emerged like a gray towel laid over the night. A fine line of light at its edge. The boy woke once. Asked for water. I opened the thermos. Fed him a few sips. He drank and fell back asleep, tucking his little blanket tighter, face buried in his stuffed toy. I leaned back and watched the sky grow lighter. It felt like the longest day. Everything compressed into a single hour, yet stretched into a thread so thin it left you exhausted. The phone signal returned. A flood of messages. Notifications stacked like a heartbeat monitor. 17 missed calls from Elena. 23 WeChat messages across the timeline. From questions to pleas to threats to sobs. 6 from my mother-in-law, each more frantic than the last. 1 from my sister. Bro, your wife called me. Said you guys fought. You okay? I replied to my sister, I'm fine. Then I opened Elena's chat and scrolled to the last message. She'd said, Evan, come back. Let's talk. I stared at it a long time. Screen glare making my eyes ache. Then I replied, talk. First explain what's on your neck. Sent. Then I powered the phone off. Completely off. Long press the button. Slide to power off. Screen went dark. Tossed it into the glove box and slammed it shut. Day broke fully. Golden sunlight spilled across the valley, through dry yellow grass, onto the hood of the car, warming the silver paint. Dewdrops sparkled on the leaves. Distant birds called, crisp and clear. I started the engine. The sound loud in the morning valley, startling a few sparrows from the power lines. The boy woke, rubbing his eyes, dazed, watching the increasingly bright landscape outside. Morning light caught his lashes, tipping them in gold. Daddy, when are we going home? We're not going home. I said. Then where are we going? To a new home. You and me. He didn't understand, but nodded and settled back to sleep. His trust came before dawn, more pure than birdsong. The car wound down the mountain, curves one after another, which I handled steadily. Tree shadows flashed across the windows, dappling my arms. Sunlight grew stronger, almost blinding. I squinted and started planning next steps. Go back and talk. Take photos of the marks. Leave the ring on the coffee table. Ask her what Zach meant to her. What would she say? Mosquito bites. Heat rash. A scratch. I already knew I didn't want to hear any of it. Those words had already rotted in my mind before she could say them. One thought kept circling. Why didn't she cover those marks with concealer? Did she forget? Or did she simply not care? Because she assumed I'd seen them, and what could I do about it anyway? She probably thought, Evan, the stay-at-home dad, the pod watcher, the man who can't even drive out of the city. Even if he sees, he'll just swallow his teeth and keep going. She didn't even bother to hide it. She lay down and slept like the dead. In her eyes, what even was I? A doorman. A nanny. A fool she could always fool. The more I thought, the tighter I gripped the steering wheel. Knuckles white. Veins raised on the back of my hand. Halfway down the mountain, there was a scenic overlook. Paved with stone slabs. Iron railings. A sign reading no climbing. I pulled over. Killed the engine. Stepped out. And stood by the railings. Morning wind hit me, carrying dew and earth. Distant mountains rolled into the haze. Green ridges wrapped in mist. White fog rising from the slopes. Like an unfinished ink painting. I looked at those mountains and suddenly remembered 10 years ago. My first date with Elena. Spring before graduation. She was in the Chinese literature department at a neighboring school. I was in engineering. Mutual friends had organized a group hike up a suburban mountain. I remembered she wore a white dress that day. Hair in a ponytail. Tiny beads of sweat glittering on her forehead in the sun. The trail got steep. She got tired. Crouched by the side of the road catching her breath. I crouched beside her and said, "Get on. I'll carry you." She hesitated 2 seconds. Then climbed on my back. I carried her the whole 2 kilometers. She laughed the whole way. Said, "You're going to make such a great husband someday." I said, "You know it." She pinched my ear. I peeled those frames from memory. Held them up in the morning light. And they looked faded. Like old photographs curling at the edges. I got back in the car. The boy was awake. Pressing his face to the window. Pointing at the distant mountains. "Daddy, there's clouds over there." "Yeah, clouds. Can we touch them?" "No. Too high. Why don't they come down? They live in the sky. When I grow up, I'm going to live in the sky too." "Okay." I smiled. It was faint, but the corner of my mouth actually curved up. I started the car and continued down. The road spiraled down, each turn opening the view a little wider. In town, I found a breakfast shop. Got him a sesame flatbread and a cup of soy milk. He gnawed at the flatbread on a plastic stool, grease smeared around his mouth, which I wiped with a tissue. At the next table, a woman with a child. The kid looked at my kid. They stared at each other. Then each went back to their food. I realized this scene was profoundly ordinary. Any father with a child had experienced it. But today, I felt like I was separated from those ordinary fathers by a transparent film. Their lives were intact. They had breakfast with their kids and went home to waiting wives. A piece of my life was missing. Taken so quietly I hadn't noticed until this morning. I asked the shop owner where to park. He pointed to an alley across the street. I parked, carried the boy into a chain motel. The front desk woman, middle-aged, gave me a few extra looks as I checked in with the kid. A certain assessing glance. But she didn't ask. She'd seen all kinds of guests. I booked a twin room. 100 yuan deposit. I put the boy on one bed. He shrugged off his jacket, rolled into the blanket. "Daddy, are we staying here?" "One night. And tomorrow. Tomorrow we go somewhere better." He was satisfied. Lay on his stomach playing with the remote. I sat on the edge of the other bed. Phone still off. Outside. The town's main street. Narrow. Lined with plane trees starting to yellow. Sparrows on the power lines. Occasional cars raising dust. The landline sat on the nightstand. Silent. I stared at it for 10 seconds. Picked up the receiver. Put it back down. I pulled out the tablet. Connected to the motel Wi-Fi. Logged into WeChat. Messages flooded in. Elena's latest. Sent around 5 a.m. "Evan, you win. Come back. I'll tell you everything. I know you saw those marks. I don't want to lie to you. But at least let me see our son." I scrolled further. Then I found a voice message from Zach. His profile photo was a cat. An orange British shorthair. I'd never had Zach's contact. He must have gotten it through Elena. The voice message was 3 minutes long. I tapped play. held the tablet to my ear. A middle-aged man's voice came through. Unhurried. Slightly raspy. Background hum of office air conditioning. Evan Chin. Right. This is Zach. Elena told me about you. I wanted to say a few things. Those marks you saw. I did them. Yeah. You guessed it. These last 2 nights we were traveling. I put them there. At first she pushed me away. Then she didn't. We're both at fault. I'm not making excuses. But let me tell you something, Elena is a person. She's not a bird in your cage. She cheated. And I own my part in that. But you took the kid and ran. That's the most selfish thing you could do. Come back. We'll talk face to face. Don't use the kid to blackmail her. The message ended. I stared at the gray progress bar showing 3 minutes played. Faint electric hiss still in my ears. Sparrows chirped outside. Zach's voice circled in my head. Phrase by phrase. At first she pushed me away. Then she didn't. She's not a bird in your cage. Don't use the kid to blackmail her. I closed the tablet. Sat on the edge of the bed. The boy had rolled over. Little arms sticking out from under the blanket. I pulled the cover back over him. Then I stood and walked to the window. Looked down at the plane trees. Zach was right. I was selfish. But I hadn't been selfish enough. I pulled out my phone. Powered it on. And sent Elena one message. 3 p.m. Today. Home. You'll see our son. And bring Zach with you. Sent. I turned the phone off. Just before the screen went dark, I saw the read receipt appear beside the message. Green. Tiny. I looked back at the sleeping boy. He poked his head out from under the covers. Little nose twitching. Mouth slightly open. Like he was murmuring in a dream. I sat down on the other bed. Put the backpack on my lap. Opened the zipper pocket. The silver ring was still there. Quiet. I pulled it out. Held it up to the daylight through the window. Light passed through the circle, projecting a small round spot on the opposite wall. Clear-edged. Perfect. I put the ring on the nightstand, lay down on the other bed, and closed my eyes. Sleep. When I wake. 3 p.m. home. I closed my eyes. Elena's voice still in my ears. The gaps and pauses in that voice message. I'll tell you everything. She'd said, I don't want to lie to you. But before that, she already lied for 2 years. 2 years worth of days. Enough for a child who couldn't walk to be running through the house. Enough for a relationship to go from scalding to frozen. I sank into that thought like a stone into deep water, soundlessly hitting the bottom. The last scrap of awareness. The moonlight over the quarry, and the cold pooled water at the bottom. Then I slept. When I woke, the phone said 1:30 p.m. I'd slept about 4 hours. Head heavy as lead. Eyelids raw. Outside. Sunlight blazed. Plane leaves glowing. Silver undersides flashing in the breeze. The boy was already awake. Cross-legged on the other bed. Methodically channel surfing. The screen skipped from news to shopping to cartoons to static. He was delighted. Pressing buttons like he was conducting serious scientific research. Daddy. Can this TV show Ultraman? No. Then Peppa Pig. Not that either. Then what does it have? Everything except Peppa Pig. He pouted. Tossed the remote. I washed my face. Brushed my teeth. Changed into a clean light blue shirt from my bag. It was a little wrinkled at the collar. I tugged it straight in the mirror. The man in the mirror was 33. Dark circles under his eyes. A dark stubble shadow on his chin. I leaned in and looked closely. I seemed unchanged. A whole night had passed between yesterday and today. But that face was still the same. I walked to the nightstand. Picked up the ring. Held it in my palm. Put it in my pocket. Then I slung the backpack on. Picked up the boy. Let's go home. He wrapped his arms around my neck. Will I see Mommy at home? Yes. Will Mommy buy me candy? She will. Then let's go. I checked out. Handed the key card to the front desk. Walked out of the motel. Buckled him in. Started the engine. Drove through the old town street. Heading back toward the city. I drove steadily. No speeding. No hard braking. Sunlight angled through the window, falling across his face. He leaned his head sideways, watching the fields, humming a tuneless song. White egrets flew over the green rice paddies, drawing arcs with their wings. He pressed his face to the window, breath fogging a patch of glass. I pulled up to our neighborhood gate. 2:40 p.m. Parked in the underground garage. Pulled the backpack out. Reached in for the ring. The silver band gleamed in the dim light. I lifted the boy from his seat. He leaned his head down, hand gripping my collar. In the elevator. I watched the floor numbers tick up. My heartbeat was steady, calmer than normal. A calm like a frozen lake. The stuff underneath invisible but still there. The doors opened. Empty hallway. Sunlight streamed through the window at the end, painting a golden rectangle across the floor tiles. I walked to the apartment door, pulled out the key. When it slid into the lock, I felt my fingers tremble. Just slightly, but definitely. I took a deep breath, turned the key all the way. Click. The lock released. I pushed the door open. In the living room sat two people. Elena on the couch, in a black turtleneck, neck completely covered, hair pulled back, forehead exposed. Her face was white, lips almost bloodless, eyes red and swollen, like she'd been crying a long time. Zach sat across from her in the armchair, dark jacket, legs crossed, an unlit cigarette turning between his fingers. 2 glasses of water on the coffee table, both untouched. The whole room felt airless, like a space no one had breathed in for a long time. I stood in the entryway and set the boy down. He saw his mother, let go of my hand, and ran toward her, shouting "Mommy." Elena bent to catch him, held him tight, her chin on the crown of his head. She held him a long time, her tears dropping onto his back. "Mommy, why are you crying?" he asked. "Mommy's fine." Her voice was like sandpaper. Zach looked at me. His gaze was a mixed mess. Nervous. Yes. Like an animal backed into a dead end. Probing. Yes. Trying to read my face. And something else. Something lurking in the corner of his eye, a trace of condescension. He probably figured a husband who'd run away with his kid in the middle of the night didn't have much standing. I walked into the living room. Didn't sit. Stood in front of the coffee table, looking down at both of them. Sunlight came through the window behind me, stretching my shadow long across their laps, covering them both in darkness. "Talk," I said. Elena looked up at me, still holding the boy. Those eyes. I'd known them for 10 years. From 20 to 30. From campus to our first apartment to the delivery room to this living room. They'd once held light, sparkling, curving into crescent moons when she smiled. Now that light was gone. Just panic and guilt. Like murky water unsettled. "Evan." Her voice was hoarse, tear-choked. What I said before. It's true. Yes. Zach and it did happen. The marks on your neck. He put them there. You don't need to repeat that. Tell me something I haven't heard. Elena bit her lip and fell silent. Zach put the cigarette down, cleared his throat, leaned forward slightly, hands clasped on his knees. "Evan, I'll be straight with you. Elena and it's been 6 months. A few times on trips before. What you saw. Yes. It happened. You came here to get answers. So here they are. She's more comfortable with me than she is with you." "Oh." I looked at him. "Comfortable how?" Zach shifted his leg, a little smirk tugging at his mouth. Half laugh, half sneer. "You tell me. You don't work. You stay home with the kid. Cook. Clean. She comes home to you every day. How much excitement do you think she feels? She told me you've been like a housekeeper for 2 years. Cooking. Cleaning. Nothing else. When she goes out for business dinners, you don't ask. When she works till 10, you don't even call. Her life with you. She's been walking dead. So you helped her." I paused, finding the right word. "Get a thrill." "I'm not going to argue with you." Zach stood up, hands in jacket pockets, leaning back, all relaxed nonchalance. "It's done. You want a divorce. Fine. You want to make a scene. Fine. She gets the kid. We pay whatever we have to pay. This is adult stuff." Elena spoke up suddenly. "Evan, I'm not asking for your forgiveness. But I'm begging you. Please don't speak." I cut her off. She froze. So did Zach. I'd never used that tone with Elena. In 5 years of marriage, our fights could be counted on one hand. And I always gave in first. She probably never heard me speak with that kind of finality. Zach stepped forward. "What's your problem?" I ignored him. I walked to the coffee table, pulled the ring from my pocket, and placed it on the surface. The silver circle rolled once with a soft ping, then stopped. The engraving inside, 2021-05-20, was clearly visible in the light. Elena's face changed. She stared at the ring, panic turning into something else, like someone had thrown ice water on her in winter. Zach stared too. He didn't know what it meant, but he sensed danger. "This ring, you asked me for it," I said, voice flat. Like a teacher reading aloud. You said you wanted a plain band. No diamond. Said diamonds were impractical. Said we had better uses for the money. I was moved. You were so sensible. So committed. I put what I would have spent on a diamond into a down payment on our second place. Did you know that? Elena opened her mouth. No sound. You asked. I gave. Now I'm giving it back. I pushed the ring toward her. It rolled again, stopping at the table's edge, almost falling off. Evan. You can't. Tears spilled down her cheeks, dripping into the boy's hair. I said divorce. I met her eyes. I'm taking our son. Agree. And we'll go through mediation. Disagree. And I'll take you to court. Zach let out a laugh. Not loud, but jarring in the thick air. You're out of your mind. A stay-at-home dad. What are you going to use to get custody? You don't even have a job. I stared at him. Zach's smile froze under my gaze. Inch by inch. I didn't look away. I put everything I'd accumulated over these years into that look and pushed it all at him. Zach. I said, voice soft, like I was chatting with an old friend. Do you know why Elena stayed with me for 2 years and never asked for a divorce? Zach blinked. Because she didn't know I owned 2 properties. One bought outright before we married. Another I bought last year with money she didn't know I had. She didn't know I own a small shop on the east side of town. One that makes triple her salary. She thought I was home cooking and doing laundry because that's what she assumed. She thought I was easy to control because I never bothered to argue. Zach's smile was gone, frozen like someone had pressed pause. Elena's pupils contracted sharply, lips parting, every trace of color draining. And another thing. I said, turning to Elena, last year on your birthday, you said Zach gave you a necklace. You said a colleague gave it to you. I looked it up that same day. Purchase record, 4,800. At the brand's Southside boutique. I have a photo of the receipt. That night you told me you were working until 10, but you were actually at a hotel on the north side. In a 2-hour room. I didn't say anything because I wanted to see just how long you could keep it from me. The last trace of color vanished from Elena's face. Her lips quivered. Fingers tight on the boy's clothes. Knuckles white. The boy squirmed under her grip. But she didn't let go. Won't talk. Fine. I'll say it for you. I stepped forward. Sunlight streamed from behind me, my shadows swallowing them both. In the past 2 years, you've taken 15 business trips. 11 of those were on the same flight as Zach. 7 times you stayed in the same hotel. I have the records, booking orders, flight histories, WeChat step counts, Didi ride histories, Meituan delivery addresses. Zach sent you 3 late-night snacks through Meituan, all to your hotel room number. I have all of it. I didn't show it before because I was saving you the embarrassment. I stopped. The living room fell into absolute stillness. Outside, a car passed, honked once, then faded at the next intersection. The kitchen faucet dripped. Drip, drip. The boy lay in Elena's arms, looking between us, his small hand touching her tear-soaked collar. Zach finally spoke, his voice dry as sandpaper on tin. You investigated her. Why would I investigate her? I looked at Zach, my voice carrying a weariness he couldn't read. She left the traces herself. I'm just a cook and nanny with one advantage. I pay attention. She deleted the photos of you 2 from her phone, but the cloud backup kept them. She cleared her WeChat history, but the red envelope records didn't disappear. She thought she was careful, but hiding 2 years' worth of a life requires erasing every trace. The things she forgot to erase. More than I care to count. Zach's face went from gray to white. His mouth opened, closed. I'm not going after you, I said, stepping back, hands in my pockets. I just want the divorce and full custody. Elena, you walk away with nothing. I keep these records to myself. But you sign the agreement. After that, you 2 can do whatever you want. None of my business. Elena shot up from the couch, setting the boy down, lunging at me, gripping my arms. Her nails dug through my shirt into my skin. Evan, please. I know I was wrong. I really know. I'll change. Change. I looked at her. She was close enough for me to smell the familiar body wash. And underneath it, through the turtleneck, that unfamiliar trace of men's cologne. Change to whose place? Zach's. Zach stood to the side, lips moving, no sound. His face was as white as wallpaper, hands hanging at his sides, fingers barely trembling. Sign it. I pulled out my phone, unlocked it, opened the draft agreement Jackson had sent, and pushed it toward her. I already had my lawyer draft the agreement. Read it. If it's fine, sign. If not, the next step is me putting everything on your boss's desk. Elena looked down at the screen. Her eyes scanned the dense text, but her pupils were unfocused. Her fingers trembled. Couldn't hold the phone steady. You. Her voice low, broken like shattered glass. You had everything ready. From the moment I saw those marks on your neck, I knew I wasn't going to keep living with you. Elena hung her head. Her shoulders hitched with sobs. The sound muffled in her throat. Zach stepped beside her, placed his hand on her back, palm against the edge of her turtleneck. Elena flinched, shifted sideways, but didn't get away. His hand stayed there, like a possessive mark. I watched the scene, and a rough ache spread from my chest through my limbs. One more thing, I said. Zach and Elena both looked up. Zach, earlier you called me selfish. You said I was using the kid as leverage. Well, now you understand. I'm not using the kid. I'm using the savings and the evidence I've accumulated over the years to buy my son a future. I'm not going to let someone who betrayed me raise him. Zach shut his mouth. His hand slid off Elena's back. Elena took the phone, signed the agreement. Her finger moved across the screen, and I noticed the pale indent on her ring finger, the ghost of 5 years' worth of a band that was no longer there. A faint white mark at the base of her finger. She handed the phone back, fingertips icy cold, trembling against my palm. I took it, checked the signature field, closed the screen. Done. I bent, picked up the ring from the coffee table, and put it in my pocket. Then I walked to the couch and picked up our son. He looked from his mother to me, a 3-year-old's confusion in his eyes. Daddy, isn't Mommy coming with us? Mommy has something to discuss with Uncle Zach. Will I see Mommy again? Yes, whenever you want. Daddy will bring you, he said and buried his face in my shoulder. I turned and walked toward the door. Behind me, Elena's muffled sobs, fragmented, like a thread about to break, and Zach's low voice soothing her. It's okay. It's okay. Something in his tone that I couldn't quite name, caught between comfort and victory. I didn't look back. At the door, I stopped, didn't turn. Elena, I hope you find happiness. With that, I pushed the door open and walked out. The hallway was still full of sun, still the same golden floor tiles. I carried the boy toward the elevator. The door closed behind me with a click. This time, I was the one who closed it. When the elevator doors opened, our neighbor Linda stood inside, carrying a bag of vegetables, green leaves poking out. She saw me and the boy and smiled, wrinkles bunching at the corners of her eyes. Evan, you're back. Where's Elena? She's busy at home. Oh, you guys should come over for dinner tonight. I made braised ribs. No thanks. Linda, we're heading out of town tonight. Vacation. Something like that. I smiled. The elevator reached B1. Linda got out. I got out. I carried the boy to the car, buckled him in. He looked up at me. The fluorescent lights of the garage reflected in his eyes, bright and clear. Daddy, are we really going to see the stars? We're going to see them, and every day after this. Awesome. I got in, started the engine. It hummed to life with that steady morning rhythm. I signaled, pulled out of the garage. Afternoon sun flooded in from the exit, warm gold, filling the windshield with light. I drove onto the main road, heading toward the outskirts. In the rearview mirror, the apartment building grew smaller and smaller, farther and farther. The windows, the curtains, the days and nights we'd shared, they all slid out of the frame, flowing away like water. The Bluetooth auto-connected to the car's audio. That old song from last night started playing again. You said you'd love me forever, but your promises are just bubbles. I reached to turn it off, then thought better of it and pulled my hand back. Let it play. Let it finish. The boy in the back hummed along for a few bars, then asked, Daddy, will Mommy miss me? She will. Then why doesn't she come after us? Because Mommy has her own life. Does Daddy have his own life too? Yes. So our life. It's a new one. Yeah. He was quiet a moment, then said, Daddy, I want ice cream. Okay. There's a shop up ahead. Does Mommy like ice cream? I paused. Mommy doesn't like it. I said. Actually, she loved it. Matcha flavor especially. Always got one when we passed an ice cream shop. But I didn't correct him. Then I won't share with Mommy. I'll share with Daddy. I laughed. A light laugh. Like a leaf landing on the water. You got it. Just us. The sun sank westward, painting the sky in gradients of orange and red. Clouds were stained deep purple and dark gold, layered across the horizon. The fields on either side were bathed in sunset. Wheat tips tipped with warm light, rippling into golden waves in the breeze. The boy gnawed his ice cream in the back seat. Cream smeared around his mouth. He licked it off with a satisfied sigh. I rolled down the window. Wind rushed in, carrying the scent of grass and damp soil. Fields of rice paddies stretched to the distant mountains. Dusk lay down in layers, turning the fields deep green. I slowed down, let the wind blow longer. 2 hours later, I stopped in a small town. Just one main street, shops glowing with light. A small restaurant, a general store, a barber shop with its red, white, blue pole still turning slowly, humming faintly. I parked on the street, carried the boy into the restaurant. The owner, a white-haired old man, was sitting behind the counter watching a small TV. Opera faces in red and green. 2, he asked. 2 adults. 1 kid. I said. Noodles for him. Wonton soup for me. Got it. I sat by the window with the boy. Outside. It was fully dark now. The streetlights had come on. Warm yellow, casting plain tree shadows on the asphalt. He leaned on the table, drawing circles on the glass, watching the lights. Daddy, that light is round. Yeah, round. Like the moon. Like the moon. The wonton soup came. A white porcelain bowl with clear broth. Wonton skins thin enough to see the pink filling inside, scattered with green scallions and seaweed. I scooped a spoonful of soup, blew on it, fed him. Daddy, where are we going to live? Somewhere we can see the stars. Is the house big? Not big. Just big enough for us two. Does it have a yard? Yes. Where we can plant flowers. Whatever you want. What would you plant? Sunflowers. Good choice. I'll water them myself. Okay. I pushed the noodle bowl toward him. He picked up his chopsticks, clumsily grabbed a strand, and slurped it in. He ate messily, sauce all over his face. I leaned back in my chair, looking out the window. A few kids were running around under the streetlights, kicking a deflated soccer ball. Their laughter filtered through the glass. Across the street, the smell of roasted sweet potatoes drifted from a shop. Sweet and warm. I pulled out my phone. No new messages from Elena. None from Zach. Their conversations sat quietly in my contacts, like closed doors. I set the phone on the table, screen up. Then I picked up a wonton and put it in my mouth. Hot. The wrapper slid across my tongue. Meat filling savory. Shrimp and seaweed in the broth. I chewed slowly, swallowed. The boy finished his noodles, patted his belly, said he was full. I paid, picked him up, and walked out. Night air cool, carrying the scent of grilled meat and charcoal from a street-side barbecue. I put him in the car, then stood outside the door and looked up at the stars. The town's light pollution was low, stars thick as scattered silver. The Milky Way stretched from one horizon to the other. A gray-white band. I remembered last night at the quarry. The same sky. And I thought I might be trapped there forever. But day had come, and the road was still open. I got in, buckled up, started the engine. The boy in the back was yawning, eyelids heavy. Go to sleep. Tomorrow you'll see the new house. I said. He murmured, curled into his blanket, tucked himself up like a small animal returning to its nest. I turned the volume down. Soft piano and strings, warm and calming, and drove deeper into the night. The navigation said 70 kilometers to go. Starlight Lake Resort Community. I'd visited once 2 years ago, when I'd come with a friend to look at property. It sat in a valley, with a small natural lake, clear water, ginkgo trees all around, golden leaves carpeting the shore in autumn. I'd liked it, kept a business card. It had stayed tucked in my notebook. I'd never expected to actually come. Now I thought, I should buy it, give the boy a yard, plant sunflowers, put a little swing on the path, take him fishing on weekends, build a snowman in the winter. I could give him all of that. My shop was steady. Monthly income enough for 2 people. Rent from the 2 properties. Another steady stream. I could give him a real home. A house with a yard. A house that woke to birdsong. I pressed the gas. Speed picked up. The window half open. Night wind rushing in with the scent of fields. Cool and clean. In the rearview mirror, the town's lights grew distant, finally hidden by the mountains. Gone. Ahead. Just two beams of light and an endless, deep darkness. I touched the ring in my pocket. It was still there, the metal cool through the fabric. I reached in and held it. The edge pressed against my fingertip, the engraving inside was already carved into memory. I could trace every arc without looking. At the next intersection, I turned toward the community. From the back seat, the boys even breathing. The car's temperature just right. I slowed, turned on the radio, found a station playing soft piano. The melody filled the car, gentle, like someone playing on a lake. Ahead, I saw lights, warm yellow, scattered along the shore. A sign reading Starlight Lake Resort Community glowed softly. I signaled right, turned onto the road. Ginkgo trees lined both sides, still green in autumn, illuminated by the warm streetlights, translucent as jade. Ahead, the lake, glass still, reflecting the stars and the shore lights. A breeze passed, and the reflections rippled, broke, gathered, broke again. I parked by the lake, pulled the handbrake, killed the engine. When the vibration stopped, the silence was absolute. Wind across the water, night birds in the distant forest, my own heartbeat. I got out, stood by the lake, and looked up. More stars here than at the quarry, brighter. The lake's surface doubled the sky. One universe above, one below. The boy slept in the back, window half open, night breeze lifting the fine hairs on his forehead. Hands in my pockets. I touched the ring. I pulled it out and looked at it one last time under the streetlight. Silver ring, warm glow, the engraving, 2021-05-20, clear in the light. 3 years ago, spring, we'd stood in line at the Civil Affairs Bureau for 40 minutes. She holding milk tea, me holding both our IDs and household registrations. At the photo, the photographer told us to smile. She'd smiled brilliantly, smile so wide her ears almost touched. There had been something in her eyes then. Looking back, I recognized it, certainty. She was certain we had a future, certain the person standing in line with her would be there for a lifetime. She stopped believing it. Or, what she wanted to believe changed. I opened my hand. The ring fell into the water, a silver arc like a shooting star, disappearing into the dark surface. The splash was soft, plink, brief as a sigh. Ripples spread, wider and wider, gentler and gentler, until the surface stilled. The stars' reflections reformed, as if nothing had happened. The lake was calm again, still reflecting the Milky Way. I walked back, got in, closed the door. The boy shifted in his sleep, muttered something unclear. Maybe Daddy. His voice soft and sleepy, like a kitten's mew. Through the windshield I watched the lake full of stars. Stars above, stars below, between them, a thin skin of water. And one night that was behind us. I turned the key. Engine started, low and steady. I put it in gear, rolled slowly toward the community. The lights grew closer, warm yellow pouring into the car, falling on the sleeping boy's face. Ahead, a small house, 2 stories, white walls, gray roof, a yard with a low fence, young vines climbing. The grass was still green, lush despite autumn. A ginkgo tree taller than the rest stood at the gate, leaves glittering like scattered gold dust. I parked, killed the engine, sat looking at that house. I hadn't bought it yet, but I knew it would be ours. Tomorrow morning, I'd call the agent, start the paperwork, then find someone to fix the yard, turn the soil, plant the seeds. And when spring came, sunflowers would sprout. The path was wide enough for a wooden swing, painted blue. He liked blue. I got out, walked to the yard gate, hand resting on the low wooden fence. Night wind came off the lake, carrying the smell of water and moss. The stars above were each brighter than the next. I looked back into the car. The boy was sleeping soundly, face turned to one side, lips slightly open, sprawled exactly the way he'd sprawled on his 3rd birthday. I stood in the night a long time, long enough for the wind to chill my jacket, long enough for the forest birds to call twice more. Then I walked back, got in, leaned the seat back, and closed my eyes. In my ears, wind, water, and the boy's steady breathing, mixed together. They made something I hadn't heard in a long time. Peace. When morning came, I'd go sign the contract. I'd buy the swing. I'd plant sunflowers. In summer, he'd stand in the yard watching the golden heads turn with the sun. We'd hang a wind chime by the door. It would ring when the wind came. We'd feed the fat mallards by the lake, watch them peck at breadcrumbs. On winter mornings, we'd open the window and see a thin skin of ice on the lake. The mountain ridges white with frost. All those things would happen. One by one. I opened my eyes and glanced in the rearview mirror. He'd shifted again. One small bare foot now poking out of the car seat. I closed my eyes. This time, I was really going to sleep. Tomorrow was a new day. A new home. New stars. That's all for today. Remember to subscribe and support us.